Joey Wheeler. He may not be the greatest player in the world, but one great trait about Joey that is undeniable is his ability to adapt. When Battle City first began, Joey wasn't used to all the new rules, but even though the game had changed, Joey wouldn't let that come between him and victory, no matter how much of a challenge it may have been. Today on Duel School, I'm going to talk about the major milestones in the history of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list, as well as pose a question to you, the viewers. So let's go ahead and get started.
I am the stone that the builder refused. I am the visual, the inspiration that made ladies sing the blues. I'm the spark that makes your idea bright. The same spark that lights the dark so that you can know your left from your right. I am the ballad in your box, the bullet in the gun, the inner glow that lets you know to call your brother son. The story that just begun, the promise of what's to come. And I'ma remain a soldier till the war is won.
In May of 2002, Yu-Gi-Oh! Introduced the first limited list. At the time, nothing was forbidden, and only 2 cards were semi-limited. Before this, decks were plagued with 3 copies of Raigeki, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, and Pot of Greed. Like every list that will come after this, many people forewarned it would bring about the end of the game. But as we know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Would continue to thrive. In September of 2003, many more cards were added to the card pool, and the same could be said with the limited list. There was still no forbidden list, but the limited list more than quadrupled, and as always, people complained that this would bring about the end of the game. It wasn't until April of 2006 that we received the forbidden list. This was a very eventful day for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players because of how controversial it was. Players in North America and Europe had just seen the release of Machiura the Destructor, and a few short weeks later it was forbidden. This list also destroyed what many called the Yada Lock, which consisted of having Sangen or Witch of the Black Forest in play on your previous turn, then summoning Chaos Emperor Dragon and activating its effect. Once everything was destroyed, search your deck for Yada Garasu, summon it, and attack directly. With no cards in your opponent's hand and no way to draw any cards, the constant 200 direct attacks would go uncontested until you won the duel. Almost every competitive player had to redesign their deck, seeing as every deck ran at least a copy of every card on the new forbidden list, except for Butterfly Dagger. You can only imagine the cries of frustration that this list brought about throughout the world. After September of 2005 had come and gone, the 2 most dominant monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Had been forbidden. Also, the September ban list had broken what many had deemed the Trinity, as it was the holy grail if you began the game with these cards in your hand. Many people going to the extent of scooping and conceding the game a few short turns later, if not immediately when these 3 cards were played. The only 2 water monsters worth playing were also gone, as were many other staple cards. Players would again have to redesign their deck, and cries of Yu-Gi-Oh! Being on the brink of death could be heard around the world. In March of 2007, Breaker the Magical Warrior, Graceful Charity, Last Will, and Magician of Faith joined the forbidden list. Cards like Chain Strike, Dimension Fusion, Elemental Hero Stratos, and Gold Sarcophagus joined the limited list, as well as Overload Fusion and Gore's Emissary of Darkness. And for the first time, cards became unlimited once they were limited. Exile Force, Injection Fairy Lily, Sacred Phoenix, and Upstart Goblin were 3 per deck once again. During this time, decks like Chain Strike Burn and Machine Cybertech Overdragon took their place at the top tables. In September of 2007, the reactions to the ban list wasn't as chaotic as they once were. However, many people either gave a sigh of relief or vowed to quit the game forever when it was announced that the card drawing spawned from hell, Card Trooper, was limited to 1 per deck. No more would Card Trooper and Machine Duplication thin the user's deck by at least 14 cards and deal a crippling 57 damage to an unsuspectingly open field. March of 2008 brought the first emergency ban list, limiting the newly released Ryza the Storm Monarch. Light and Darkness Dragon was getting recognized for its power and became semi-limited. For the first time in a long time, players could use Monster Reborn again, and for the first time ever, we were allowed to play with 3 copies of Jinzo in our decks. September of 2008 marked the end of an era. Destiny Hero Disc Commander was banned at last. It seems that Konami brought back Monster Reborn to try to punish players that ditched their Disc Commander too early and give the advantage to the opponent, but the presence of this card was just too powerful anyway, and they were finally led to the decision to outright ban it. Dark Magician of Chaos, or DMOC, was also finally laid to rest, joining the Forbidden List at this time. And the rest, as they say, is history, leading into 2009 and its current ban list that once again players were displeased about, for one reason or another. But if anything can be said about the ban list, looking back at how the previous ban list went, decks were forced to be altered, the meta would change slightly, and cards deemed too powerful were weeded out with each list, and for the most part it was done for the better of the game. Do I like our current ban list? I thought Breaker was a card that would never see 3 per deck, but the surprise was nice. However, to answer the question, I neither like nor dislike it. Like Joey, I'm willing to change and make the best of whatever format the game throws at me. Adaptation is a key element of success, both in Yu-Gi-Oh! And in life in general. I get my fair share of messages every now and again, some with questions, some with show ideas, and some just looking to get a shout out, for whatever reason. So I figured I'll combine them all in a segment I'll include in the show. Send me a message entitled Question and Answer, and I'll answer any and all questions you may have concerning the game on the show. Nothing is off limits, from asking me my opinion about different cards or decks, my personal experiences, or even my thoughts about other YouTubers that do Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos. As long as it revolves around Yu-Gi-Oh! It's fair game to ask. Also, any show ideas or subjects you'd like for me to go in depth on and talk about, you can send in a message entitled Topic of Choice. I'll choose one at random, and I'll speak about that one. Or if there's a majority that have the same subject that want to be spoke about, then I might go with that one instead. Please only send one message per person, don't send multiple ones, and I look forward to answering your question soon. That's going to do it for me, you guys. This has been Duel School with Fitzroy. I'm Fitzroy, and you guys just got schooled.